You want to learn how your body works, you got to use it. And then when it feels wrong, believe yourself. Don't gaslight yourself. I was totally gaslighting myself, because like I didn't want to feel like a hypochondriac or whatever, but chances are you feel something is off, it's off.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 153 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited you are here. If this is your first time here, welcome to the podcast. If this is your 153rd time, welcome back. I'm excited you are here too. Last week, we had the one and only Dean Karnazes on the show, who not only made a point to tease me live on air about just how bad I am at downhills on trails, but we did end up having a great conversation about what he's been up to and the Chicken Soup for the Soul book he has been involved with. I always love talking to Dean, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode too. Today, I have another in-person episode that I recorded while I was in New York, and I'm so thankful for this one as I've been trying to get this lady on my show for years, literally years. Our mutual friend, Nicole DeBoom, introduced us, and we set something up while we were both in New York City for RunnerCon at New York Roadrunners, and Mirna Valerio was every bit as wonderful as I thought she would be. And this conversation was just what I hoped. And I think it's what many of us needed to hear. I just love her belief in herself and what she's able to do. Especially to those females listening, we need to take a page from her book. This is how you want to live your life. And I hope she inspires you as much as she inspired me. We had fun, we laughed, we talked about donuts, we chatted like old friends, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Just a quick moment. I just want to tell you about my friends over at Marathon Training Academy. Have you heard of Marathon Training Academy? Most likely because they have the top show on marathon training with over, listen to this, 8 million downloads. That leaves my 2 million in the dust. They've helped runners all over the world conquer the distance of the marathon. And Trevor and Angie are this husband and wife team that co-host this podcast, Marathon Training Academy. The Huffington Post said Angie Spencer is a registered nurse, certified running coach with serious marathon know-how. The hosts tackle all manners of listener questions from marathon fueling to injury prevention to compression clothing. But the best takeaway from this podcast is the Mondo dose of can-do attitude. I absolutely agree. If you love this podcast, if you love Running for Real, I want you to consider Marathon Training Academy because they're just wonderful people. They travel all over the US and they go abroad running races and sharing their journeys along the podcast. Angie is only 4 states away from completing her 50-state marathon quest, which is running a marathon in every state. You can find Marathon Training Academy wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find them online at marathontrainingacademy.com. If you, as a Running for Real fan, really enjoy the runner stories, Marathon Training Academy is definitely going to be one to add to your list if it's not already. So thank you to Janji, Athletic Greens and Body Health for sponsoring this episode. Let's go meet Mirna. Thank you to Janji for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Friends, can I just tell you how proud I feel to be wearing their clothes when I'm out running? Knowing I'm wearing a brand that genuinely care about this world, that was the reason why they started this company, because they wanted to give back to this community, you guys right here, while they're also giving our community comfortable, unique clothes to wear. As I've made pretty clear by now, I adore the patterns, the design, and I love that they changed up the patterns to represent the country they are supporting through a local designer in that country who comes up with the patterns. That's just so cool. And I feel like the roses on black for the current season does really remind me of Mexico, and I just love it. And they also give 5% of sales back to clean water initiatives in the country that inspired that season. That's just wonderful. And also the fact they use recycled materials for many of their items and unique materials like alpaca wool. It's just creative. You know, I take a lot of pride in the companies I work with, and this one I feel super proud to be working with. I have a list of my favorite items on my website at tinamuir.com/Janji. And you can get 10% off the entire Janji website by visiting runjanji.com and using code TinaMuir. That's runjanji.com and use code TinaMuir for 10% off your order. Mirna, thank you so much for being my first ever podcast recording in my hotel room, in any hotel room. You are my first guest I am interviewing in person, in my personal space. You get to see my behind the scenes.
Well, first of all, the room looks great.
Do you like what I've done with the place?
I love it. I love the decor.
I picked the walls, curtains myself.
It's funny because I've only been in a few New York City hotels because I'm from here. So it's always interesting to see what they look like. But anyway, thank you for having me on your show.
Would you like to tell everyone who the other person who you recorded a podcast with was, who's a million times more impressive than me?
Rich Roll?
Yeah.
In a hotel room in Anaheim, California.
That's pretty amazing.
That was an awesome experience.
That is, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, are very jealous of that fact. You should have got like a photographer to stand outside and take a photo and be like, oh, is this the new item? That would be.
Let's not spread any rumors now.
Okay, yeah. That is completely untrue. I just made that up. All right. So you are known as the Mirnavator.
Mirnavator.
I said that wrong. Sorry.
Everybody makes that mistake. I don't know why, but it's Mirnavator.
Of course it would be because that's your name.
Right.
But I apparently, along with everyone else, said it wrong. So okay. Tell us, did you come up with that name? Did someone else?
I did not. It actually came from a group of my fellow colleagues at a school that I was working at in New Jersey. And it was a very sort of organic thing that happened when I restarted my fitness journey in 2008, 2009. And, I posted a lot about every single thing that I was doing on Facebook. And I got a lot of people to do 5Ks and to recommit to whatever they needed to recommit to in terms of their own fitness and health. And then it just came, and I'm pretty sure it was my colleague, Leslie, that came up with the name first, and then everybody started to use it. And
did you like it all the way?
Oh, I loved it immediately.
Okay.
I loved it because it just, was like motivator, terminator, I'd be back, that kind of thing. And it just stuck. And I use it for my Twitter handle, my Skype handle, my Instagram handle, one of my public Facebook pages. And that's kind of what people know me as in public.
People say that to you when they see you in public?
I have definitely been approached by people in airports, even here in New York City and Union Square. Hey, are you the Mirnavator?
That is so cool.
It is still surprising to me that there are some people outside of my own personal circles and bubbles that know who I am. So yeah, it definitely has a ring to it. And so I will keep it forever.
Okay. Well, we'll keep using it forever. If I can actually learn.
You can just refer to me as the Mirnavator whenever you address me. That's fine.
I will try and remember that. Although apparently I can't say it right, so maybe not be able to promise much. All right. So you started out kind of sharing your journey through your blog, and you chose the name Fat Girl Running.
I did.
Now, for many people, they might say, well, like, why would you ever pick that name? Isn't that kind of, bringing about something that you want to end the conversation of, or why choose that name for your blog?
Well, I've always been a pretty honest person about who I am and what I represent and how I identify. And I'm fat, and I have been fat for a long time. Throughout some of my childhood, all of my teenage years, and all of my adult years. So that's just who I am. It describes how I look to a certain extent and how I have lived in this body. People see me as fat when I'm walking on the street. And so that's just that. That's what it is, And I'm a girl, and I identify as someone who is female on the gender spectrum, and I run. So, and it doesn't matter how slowly or fast I run, but I run. Yep. So that's who I am. And it is a very honest and clear description of who I am and what I represent.
And have you always been pretty, you said that you've always kind of known who you were. Is that come from childhood? Like, most people are not able, even, you know, it takes most people till 30, 40 years old before they can start being, you know, who they are, or even longer sometimes. So how did that come about for you that you could do that?
I mean, I knew I was a bigger girl, probably starting in the third grade. And there were lots of people in my family that were big or bigger, or chunky or thick or curvy or however you describe people who are not necessarily thin. And it wasn't a big deal in the family. It wasn't a big deal in a lot of African American or Hispanic culture. So, and both, by the way. And so, so it wasn't a thing. Like I never really saw it as a negative thing. Actually, until I became older and until I got into spheres that were more white, thinner. Like when I went to boarding school, it wasn't a thing. People didn't necessarily judge me because I played sports. I played varsity sports all throughout high school. But I did notice that other girls, because I went to an all-girls school, some, not all, were like quite obsessed with how they looked. There were some eating disorder issues at school. And that was kind of my first foray into that, like that knowledge in that realm of the fact that people weren't happy with their bodies. And that was very scary to me, actually. And so, but then, I became more aware, I guess, as I went on through college and early adulthood and such. But I've always been very, very comfortable in my body.
So you never even had like a period after seeing those girls kind of talk like that you kind of that turned it internally? Usually when we're around.
No. Because I just thought that was dumb. Like, that is very judgmental, but I thought it was dumb, because I never experienced dissatisfaction with my body. I mean, if there was dissatisfaction, it was because I wasn't fast enough or, I didn't catch on to field hockey fast enough. So, but I worked on that. And, but there was never pressure within the family or from my friends to lose weight. I went to this fabulous school, this high school, the master's school, which is about 40 minutes outside of New York City. And, I took dance, I played varsity sports, and our dance teacher would always put me in the front. And I was like, all right, I like to dance. I want to learn ballet and modern and jazz. So, and we always had to look at ourselves in the mirror. And I know like that is traumatic for a lot of people. But there was never any talk about, well, maybe if you lost weight, you would be a better dancer or whatever. There was never any talk about that. So that it was foreign to me until I was confronted by, I would go in the bathroom and see, whatever I saw on the toilet that wasn't supposed to be there, and I know that's gross, but that was my introduction to that. And I kept wondering, like, what is that on the toilet that people aren't cleaning up? And it's not crap. It's not pee. It's something else. And then somebody told me it was vomit. And so I was like, oh, well, someone's sick? Like, I really didn't know.
Yeah.
And one of my friends said, well, that's when they make themselves vomit because they're trying to lose weight. And that was really just, I don't know, maybe I was sheltered, even being in New York City and, having exposure to lots of different people, but that was not something that was a norm in my circles. So, So I know I've gone to the extreme of, but of eating disorders, but like, it never ever compelled me to explore or think about or say, hey, I need to lose weight because, eventually I was doing well in my sports because I learned how to play them. I got faster. I got more athletic. We had 2.5 hour practices. So that would, anybody would get fit from that, and plus I did PE in school and sports at the same time. So, and I love that stuff. So, it was never something that I thought about.
Were your parents very good with that as well? Like, just to kind of give some context. So like when I asked that question, I was referring more to like everything about you seems like you are just comfortable in your own skin. You're happy with who you are. You don't feel like you need to put on a front. You just are who you are. But like I just feel like that has to have come from somewhere that you're able to kind of see other people doing things that maybe aren't healthy for their bodies or aren't good for them, and you're able to say, well, that's dumb, which it is. And I remember having the same experience going to my first national championship and seeing the girl next to me not eat anything, and she ended up not winning the race but getting very close. And I thought, it blew my mind. I was like, how does someone run fast when they don't eat? Like, I couldn't wrap my brain around it. But then it was years later where I realized, oh, that's why she's not eating. And it obviously lasts a little while, and then she crashed and burned. But for me, it went into my head a few years later. I banked it, and then it kind of festered away. But for you, it never did. So
no, I mean, I went to, so in high school, I also, on the weekends, I went to Juilliard Pre-College. And Juilliard Pre-College was we would have lunch in the same building that kids from School of American Ballet would go to. They weren't eating. If they were, it was very little. And so I did wonder, that must be because they're forced to do that because they have to be skinny. And I mean, I knew what the science behind eating and weight loss and all that. I wasn't really concerned about that for myself, but I did see it, later on in high school. So, but that was never, so I was like, I would never do that to myself. Cause number one, I'm not a ballerina. I don't need to do that. And I need to eat. So, cause I play sports and I need fuel. That much I knew.
Well, that's good that you were able to see that all along, all the way through. And then, once kind of running came into the forefront, did you feel like as a woman or as a girl, depending on when you kind of classify that, did you feel that you were welcomed into the running community, easily? Did you feel like you were treated differently because at that time, maybe most runners did look exactly the same?
Well, it was an interesting thing when I started running, because I started running in high school to get better at field hockey.
Okay.
And lacrosse.
Yep.
And I didn't have this thought in my mind that, I needed to look a certain way to be a runner, because I was literally trying to get faster and also to have endurance for these hour and a half long games and 2.5 hour long practices. And I wanted to be able to run the warm up without stopping. That's why I started running.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I told you a few months ago how I was loving taking my Athletic Greens every morning. It slipped solidly into my morning routine. So I wake up, stumble down the stairs, put some cold water in a shaker or glass, add a scoop of Athletic Greens, and drink it while I do my gratitude list and journal. Friends, I cannot tell you how nice it feels to have a morning routine that just seems to work. It starts me off in the right way physically and emotionally, as I know my body is getting 14 fruits and vegetables worth of antioxidants before 6 a.m, as well as probiotics and prebiotics and 75 wholesome ingredients. But I'm also starting off my day with gratitude, which is a game changer. I love that when I'm traveling or not, I can hold my head high with confidence, knowing that Athletic Greens has my back. And now as we move into sickness season, those germs are everywhere. Athletic Greens will build up your immune system so you can fight them off without getting sick every single time. And after a few months of taking it, your body will be so much better at fighting and just keeping those sick bugs away. I can already see that within my body. And I actually like taking it. It doesn't taste like other green drinks, which tastes like literally drinking a cup of pulverized grass. But this actually does have a pleasant taste, and I sip it. That's how enjoyable it is. You can get a 20 serving travel pack that's $79 value free with your order. So go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to get yourself some. You have worked so hard to train for your goals. Don't let sickness take it away from you at the last second. Go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to go get yourself some.
It was an interesting thing when I started running, because I started running in high school to get better at field hockey.
Okay.
And lacrosse.
Yep.
And I didn't have this thought in my mind that, I needed to look a certain way to be a runner, because I was literally trying to get faster and also to have endurance for these hour and a half long games and 2.5 hour long practices. And I wanted to be able to run the warm up without stopping. Like, that's why I started running. And so like, I just kept at it. I kept at it during breaks while we were at school. I would run in the morning. And I did notice that most people were thin that were out running, and most people were white. But I didn't care because I really just wanted to be better at my sport. And then I fell in love with running because I loved the way it made me feel. And so I think that just clouded my brain and made me not really care. Although I did notice, and I was aware that I did have a body type that was not necessarily represented in the people that ran in Central Park.
Oh, yeah.
And, which is different today. But that, again, that's not something that I was like, I noticed it. I put that in the back of my head and I kept doing what I was doing. And as far as, being treated differently or, I usually ran by myself. So like, and I just did what I did. I still do that. Like, maybe somebody will look at me and have a thought. And maybe I can see that in their face and in their body language. And, also maybe, people will say stuff to me, in terms of like being treated differently. They'll say, "Oh, are you a new runner?" Or like, "Is this your first 5K? Or is this your first half?" "No, this is my, 17th. But again, like, while it may give me a little bit of pause, and I might be annoyed. Okay, I get annoyed by that, but has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with people's lack of experience, or or their not just being aware that there are different types of bodies that do the same things that they do. But like, I keep going on. I don't let that stop me. And like. And nowadays, I feel very welcomed in the running community, more specifically in the trail running community.
Welcomed. You are like treasured and like celebrated and loved by all.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. But and I'm sure there's still people, and I can always tell in people's body language and their facial expressions. If people think I don't belong, like, it still happens, but but I don't care because I'm going to do what I need to do for my body, for my community. And I don't care what you think.
Well, thanks
I'm
a lot.
looking at you like, as I say that, and it looks, I don't care what you think, Tina. Damn it.
I was like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, like, I like when I get into my like this headspace and I start like, and yeah. Okay, I did. I totally did. I don't care.
Okay, well,
sorry.
On that note, for someone who does care, so let's say there is someone listening who does have a different body to what they consider to be a quote unquote real runner, which I've tried to drill in people's heads,
which is
like
bullshit,
3
by the way,
million
right?
times. There is no such thing. For someone listening who says, I love her confidence, I admire her for being able to say that she can do that, but I can't. What would you like if that person was sitting opposite you right now? You said you get into the zone. If they were sitting opposite you and they were in my seat right now, what would you tell them to like just look inside and see what they have rather than looking at everyone else and see what they don't?
I would ask, what else is going on in your life where you love something, you absolutely love something, but you won't do it because you fear what people are going to think of you? And then how do you handle that? What do you do about that? Do you let it stop you? Because chances are you are missing out on life when you let things like that stop you. And I find that like I have this I have this incredible community on Facebook called Fat Girl Running. We have 13,000 members. And that is very heavily moderated. And we don't talk about weight loss. You're not allowed to. And we also don't allow memes, which is another
interesting.
Yeah. And
what about GIFs?
GIFs and GIFs are allowed.
Okay.
Because they're different than memes. Anyway, so but there's so many people in that group who are just full of fear, and they have this narrative in their brains such that whatever's going on in their brains won't allow them to do what it is they need to do for their bodies, minds, and spirits. And a lot of it is just seeing people that look like them, or seeking out people that have similar or shared stories or experiences, go out and do the thing. Mm-hmm. And when you have that kind of representation, when you have that kind of feed, like over and over again, because you got to change your feed.
Yeah.
You got to change your own feed. You got to change your Instagram feed. You got to change your people feed, your real like IRL feed, to represent the things that you want in life. Yep. And so when you don't have that, it's very hard to kind of step out of yourself and to kind of like observe that narrative that you have going on and do the thing that you need to do for yourself. And so I would recommend that that you do that. You change your feed, that you surround yourself with people that do support you and do believe in you. And sometimes that's really hard for people because they're stuck in a place, they're stuck mentally or emotionally in a place, or in a relationship or in a family or in a friendship that won't allow that. But you can unstuck yourself.
Yeah. And this is something I really actually,
that's a word.
Is it?
You can, you can, as a verb, you can unstuck yourself.
Unstuck yourself.
I just made that up. Okay. Unstick. You can unstick yourself. You can, become unstuck from those situations. It's really hard, and it takes a lot of mental and emotional work. But that's what it is. It's mental and emotional work, because most of us can do things physically. If we can't do it now, we can work towards it and get better. As you well know, you're trying to run your whatever mile or your marathon in like 2:01.
I'm up there with Kipchoge. Yeah, it's me.
It's something you work on, right? And so that's the other part of it, is that you have to realize that it's all a journey. It is all like, you don't get out there and suddenly you are able to run a 9-minute mile if you've always been a 15-minute miler. So it's something I'm working on. But, people want fast results, and that's something else that hampers people from getting out there. It has nothing to do with confidence. It is about doing the work. People think, oh, confidence, I need motivation, I need inspiration. That stuff is bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm saying that word so much. But it's all about getting out there and doing the work. You put in the work. I also don't believe in accountability. To anybody else. You are accountable only to yourself. And so people are waiting for other people to inspire them and to motivate them and to be their accountability partner. No, you get out there and you do the work. You have to practice that. And you have to also practice knowing that every day you're not going to progress every day.
Yep.
Sometimes you are going to take 5 steps back when you've taken 2. But then life happens. You got to take a couple of days off, or you get injured, and then you got to start from a worse place than you started, but you got to keep going. And so, but we're not practiced in doing that because we're so used to having immediate results. And so that's going on in people's heads. He's like, well, if I'm not able to do this half marathon or this 5K, then I'm going to quit. Yep. Well, I'm not even going to start because I don't think I can do it. Because I don't think I can, deal with the, all of the emotions that come after not achieving my goal, or not, even if it's a daily goal or something like that. And so there's all this mental stuff we've got to deal with, mental and emotional stuff. And it's just a matter of putting on your shoes or not, sometimes, or sandals or whatever you wear to run, and doing it. And fine if you need somebody to run with you or whatever to start your journey. And if you need that as a crutch, fine, use your crutch, but know that it's a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
Know that eventually you're going to have to go out and do it yourself.
Definitely.
And do your own work.
Yep. Great. So much.
Sorry, that was so long.
No. There were so many things that I want to talk about from what you just said there. But so I'm going to try and just pick a few things there. So confidence, you said. I think so many people say, well, if I can just do this, then I'll be confident. If I can just reach this level, then I'll be confident.
You've been waiting forever.
Yeah. And confidence doesn't work like that. You have to get yourself to feel confident in who you are and, what you have already done before that kind of can continue. And you're never going to reach a point where you're just like, I'm just so confident right now. Even, I always talk about this, no matter what level someone reaches in running, they're always going to want more. Once you reach a goal, you want more. That's part of it. And that's amazing. So for those listening who think, well, I would be confident if I could reach this level, if I could be this way, but it never works like that. You have to, like Mirna said, do the work internally first. And then the other part of that you were saying about changing your feed, changing who's around you. And yes, some people listening, you may not be able, like Mirna said, it might be your family, it might be your friends, but that doesn't mean that you can't listen to podcasts with people. You can follow Instagram people who inspire you, who are good for you, who are encouraging you. You can mute the other people. You can
mute, block.
It doesn't have to mean that you see these people. Like someone like Mirna, perfect example. You don't have to meet up with Mirna once a week to be inspired. You can follow her. You can listen to her on things. You can surround yourself by these people without actually being surrounded. Or your community, perfect example. Those people in your community are spending time with other people who are like-minded and going for similar things without actually physically being within their presence. So I just wanted to say that because I hear so many people that I can't be surrounded by people who are inspiring because I don't have that luxury, but you do. You just have to be creative with how you find it.
Absolutely.
Right. So related to that, for someone who's saying, they feel like their body won't be able to cover those distances because of the impact, because of, I wear through shoes really quickly, because I don't think my body could handle that distance. What would you say to those people?
Okay, well, you know what? The reality is that sometimes your body can't handle the distance yet. Right?
Keyword.
So you have to, I don't want to sound pedantic here. So I think it's important to realize again that big, huge, scary goals are accomplished in small steps or with small steps. You can expect that a lot of people look at me and because I maybe look like I'm not fit to some people, or I look like I haven't ever run a marathon or an ultra marathon or whatever, or they think that if they have the same sort of body type that I haven't done the work and so that they can also do the same things without training. So they think I don't train. So if you're thinking like that,
that's 26
right.
miles.
And then you might not be able to do that.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to train. Mm-hmm. You have to, you want to do 10 miles? You got to train for that. Your body will be able, most people's bodies, not everybody, depending on, your own physicality, your own physiology, your health, your whatever, your experience, your training age, etc. Most bodies can do very long distances, or most bodies can do 5Ks or 10Ks or even a mile. And it's a matter of, maybe you don't believe yourself now, but it's a matter of trying. Mm-hmm. Okay. And also talking yourself back into doing things and not allowing yourself to talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So, I can't do that distance. Okay. Well, again, maybe you can't do it yet, but if you train smart, you will probably be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's not always going to happen the first time. It's not always going to happen the second time or even the third or fourth time. Mm-hmm. But it might happen the fifth time or the sixth time.
And feel amazing.
Yes.
If you waited that long.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so many benefits. And it's a totally different topic, but there's so many benefits in trying and trying, especially when you're doing something like running, because your body is still like benefiting from the training.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind, your spirit are all benefiting from the work that you are putting in and the lessons that you are learning, because those are all lessons that are directly transferable to other areas of your life.
Yep. Great. Thank you so much. All right. And then what about someone feels like they don't know how, they don't understand their body? You hear this, listen to your body knows what to do. But if they feel frustrated, embarrassed of their body, or like, I just don't get how it works. I don't get what it wants. I don't get what my limits are. What would you say there?
But you know what? How you learn about your body is by doing the thing. Mm-hmm. So the only reason, well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I have a really, really intimate relationship with my body is because I use it all the time. Mm-hmm. This morning I had a physical therapy appointment and I've been feeling off, and I knew that the problem was in my left leg. And I was, but like, I think had I not because it was like hurting, but it just felt a little wonky and off, that's the best word that I can use to describe it. And it just, things felt a little imbalanced. I went to my PT and he noticed right away. He's like, "Oh, what's going on with your left leg?" I think if I were not a runner, or if I were not an athlete, who dealt with my body all the time.
Yes.
Not just with the muscles, but with the other things that happen to the body, especially as a female, I wouldn't have the awareness that I have now. And so you want to learn how your body works, you got to use it. Yep. You got to try things. Mm-hmm. And then when it feels wrong, believe yourself. Don't gaslight yourself. I was totally gaslighting myself. Cause like I didn't want to like feel like a hypochondriac or whatever, but like chances are you feel something is off, it's off. Mm-hmm. So, you can feel those things when, I'm using my legs all the time. I use my toes all the time.
Or even if you reflect back on it, like, okay, that, I should have seen that coming. I did have this symptom or that symptom.
Or something in your training log, or which I should have. But,
you don't have a training log?
Not right now. Sorry, coach.
If your coach is listening, that's you apologizing. All right, so let's switch gears a bit here and talk about, you mentioned you do get criticism. Now, everyone listening is going to get criticism, whether it, maybe on a more public scale, like you and I, or it might be more of just a family member who makes remarks towards you or something like that. So, firstly, like, how do you rise above comments, especially when they are maybe on topics that are very, very personal and kind of things that people really shouldn't be making comments about in the first place, but especially on the internet with behind a computer, people have a lot more confidence to do stuff like that.
Geez. Well, these days just don't read the comments anymore. Even if they're positive, because, there will be mostly positive comments, but, as humans, we dwell on the negative ones and they hurt. They absolutely hurt. And, you know what I hate? I hate when people say, "Oh, just brush it off," or, haters gonna hate, because then that diminishes my experience with the negativity that is hurled at me, even from people that I don't know. And like people that I do know, they know better. Don't come at me. But people that I don't know, which is like the thousands and thousands of people or millions on the internet, I just can't. I don't have the emotional space. I don't have the mental space to deal with those things anymore. So I do not read them. And thank you to all the people that have sent positive comments or that have just like been amazing. Thank you. But it's tough wading through those and seeing the negative, ignorant. It's mostly ignorant sometimes. It's definitely mostly fat phobic. I don't want to read them. I did another podcast, the Strava podcast, a couple of weeks ago or months ago rather. And, just like lots of people in that community were just coming. They were promoting obesity. How do you promote obesity when you are featuring somebody that is a runner or that is running? That is the biggest, what's the word? The biggest piece of cognitive dissonance.
Look at you throwing out your psychological terms.
So there's a lot of that, and there's this sort of like immediate reaction. Oh, well, clearly she doesn't eat right. I know we were just talking about donuts, right? So, and
that was before the show. You're not supposed to tell people we were talking about donuts.
We were talking about maple cream donuts from, I think it was Gresham, Oregon.
I thought you said it was
Sandy. No, it's Sandy,
Yeah.
Oregon.
Okay.
And so anyway, so like, there's this like this belief that showing, not even showcasing, but showing anybody that is fat. And I do not like the word obese because it means, is it obesis? Like it means too much.
Oh.
And I'm like, too much for whom? But like I really try not to heed too much those things, but I mean it does hurt and it is taxing. It's emotionally taxing, and it makes my blood boil and my heart rate rise. Like if I have my watch on, like I can see
you
my
get that like prickly feeling.
Yeah, and I can, and all of the blood drains from my tongue and it gets numb. It's a very physiological
that's an example of you knowing
response.
your body, understanding that's your response.
Yeah, I know it and I feel it immediately, and so that's when I have to like stop reading.
So what do you say to yourself in that second, in that exact moment? If you don't say brush it off or haters gonna hate you, what do you say to yourself?
Well, that's what some people think, and that's too bad. And then I have to remind myself that there are so many other people that are really in it with me, and they're in the trenches, and they are supportive, and they are inspired, they're motivated, or whatever it is. Those are the people that I want to serve. I'm not trying to change the minds of people whose minds won't be changed.
Yeah,
that's a waste of my energy.
Do you ever worry? Like I hear people who are, celebrities or people who are constantly in the media getting criticized, saying that they kind of fear that they eventually will like cover over their heart because they don't want to, like there's so much negativity coming at them that they kind of have to protect themselves. Does any part of you worry that you might kind of callous yourself to it?
I'm definitely more callous now and more, what is the word that I'm looking for? You have me at lost.
Well,
which is rare. I am definitely very protective of myself. For example, I say no to a lot of social things, not just for my time and stuff, but like just I don't want to go there with people that I don't know. Okay, unless I'm working. If I'm working, if I'm speaking, and if there's an allotted time for me to answer questions and to be with people, and I love people. I love being with people. I am a people person, even though I'm an introvert. That's what I do for work. That's what I did as a teacher. But I definitely hold people at a distance. They might not know that I'm holding them at a distance, but I am. And because I need that space. I do need to protect my heart.
Yeah.
And I have a little tiny bit of notoriety. Like I can't even imagine people who are famous having to deal with this, like having to deal with, the photographers and the this and the that, and like always being on and not really having time and space for to take care of their own hearts. Yeah. Right. So like, yeah. And I don't make enough money for people to be all up in my face all the time. So
you never know for the future, though. All right. So one more thing on this topic here. So for someone who maybe has family members, friends who who kind of make remarks about them running, like, "Oh, are you sure you should be doing this?" Or, you know, "I don't know if you're cut out for this."
Are you a doctor? I mean, unless they are, I mean, like, but where's your research? Like, where are you getting this information from? Like, you know, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like question, but that question from people who are supposedly close to you, or who there's the concern trolling, who are concerned about your knees. But why are you concerned about my knees? Why? But like, I just ask why. Why are you concerned about my toes? Or my back? I haven't had any problems with my back, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever your situation, your personal situation is. You just come back with a question like, why are you, what's up with the knees? Like, are your knees hurting?
Probably.
And you know, a lot of that comes from people who aren't even runners. So, and it's stuff, you know, stuff that they've heard, that they've grown up with, and that they're just parroting. And I think it's worth pointing out to people.
Thank you to Body Health for sponsoring this episode of the Running For Real podcast. I just want to give a little shout out to some unexpected reasons or unexpected situations you could find yourself in to be taking Perfect Amino. Even if, like me, you are not training for a goal race or even really running hard right now. If you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding and postpartum mamas, Perfect Amino is for you. It will help your body handle those stresses and strains it's under from, you know, growing another human being and then recovering from it. It's totally safe for you and will make a huge difference at a time you are not, well, I wasn't always the best at looking after ourselves. And if you're someone who finds yourself getting sick often, could that be because you're not taking in enough protein and your body isn't getting what it needs? Body Health Perfect Amino could help for you too. And those of you who are injured, you should definitely know this is for you. And it will give your body that massive support system to get you back out running sooner. And we all know when we are injured, we want to get back as soon as possible. Perfect Amino contains the 8 essential amino acids required by the body and is easily and quickly absorbed. You can get 10% off the entire Body Health website for Perfect Amino, as well as that power meal containing MCT oil I told you about earlier this month. Visit tinamure.com/aminos for 10% off. That's TINAMUIR.com/AMINOS for 10% off your order.
Well, that question from people who are supposedly close to you, or who there's the concern trolling, who are concerned about your knees. But why are you concerned about my knees? Why? But like, I just ask why. Why are you concerned about my toes? Or my back? I haven't had any problems with my back, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever your situation, your personal situation is. You just come back with a question like, why are you, what's up with the knees? Like, are your knees hurting?
Probably.
And you know, a lot of that comes from people who aren't even runners. So, and it's stuff, you know, stuff that they've heard, that they've grown up with, and that they're just parroting. And I think it's worth pointing out to people.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that when it's somebody you love and somebody that's close to you. Like, Mom, where'd you hear that? You know, and
the way you just said that, I wouldn't be able to do that without getting this like tone of voice that would just make someone come back at me with like, why are you talking to me like that?
I have a great relationship with my mom. I mean, I would say it in a respectful way. Mom, come on, Mom, where'd you hear that? You know,
I'm just not very good at like,
where'd you hear that?
Yeah, you're good at that. I need to take some lessons from you with tact.
Well, I mean, but my family is like, we are very open with each other. So like, really, did you read that on the internet again? You know,
Dr. Google.
WebMD. Yeah. And so, and people just are misinformed, or people are only basing things on their own personal experience or from what they've seen. And like, I think it really is worth pointing that out. Like, it's like, how do you know this? How do you, is that something that you've experienced yourself? You know, I was a diversity educator, so I'm very comfortable asking those questions. And because those are like, oh, did you hear that? I don't know. Somebody once told me that, oh, I thought all Black people could sing. And I I mean, I can sing because that's what I did for a long time. But like, so where did you hear that? Oh, because everyone I've ever seen on TV that sings is Black, or whatever the crazy thing it is that they've experienced and they've taken as truth. Like, to deconstruct that is very worthwhile.
Well, I think there's a lot that could be said there.
The analogy is kind of off, but like
I think it comes across. We got your point. Okay. What was I going to ask you about? Oh, do you miss teaching?
I miss the constant community. I worked in boarding schools for 11 years, and then before that, I worked in other private schools. And I don't miss the daily grind of it. I miss the connections that I had with my colleagues and my students, but I don't miss teaching. Mm-hmm. I love teaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do it now on a very different platform, but I use every single skill that I've ever learned in education, doing the things that I do now. So, whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's, giving feedback,
telling people you don't care what they think,
right?
While staring at them in the eyes. Yes,
you're never gonna live that up.
So how does that feel? Let's talk about that. Like, how does it feel being this role model, being this person that so many people look up to, and just, you said you're an introvert. Do you like having that kind of, I don't want to say like pressure, but kind of that responsibility that people are looking to you as someone to just constantly be learning from?
But there's definitely pressure. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it does get in the way of me just trying to like live my life, or be a mom, or like just be with my family, or just be, not thinking about what am I going to post, or what, or what am I going to wear? Like today, like this is my dress down day. Well, I'm always dressed down, but I shouldn't even say that. But like, I'm like, oh, like, what is Tina going to think of me? I'm not wearing running pants. Or like, I'm always thinking about, I never thought about what I wore or whatever, or how I spoke to somebody, or, because that could always be taken out of context, or like sometimes I'm just having a bad day. I have a lot of bad days. Yeah. But then like being, a public figure, when you have a bad day, people are like, oh, like maybe she really is a bitch. Oh, I thought she was nice. Oh, I thought you were like always joyful. I did this race in California, the Broken Arrow Sky Race, and I warned it. Have you done that?
No, I've heard Eric Schranz talking about it a lot.
Crazy. There's ladders and snow and like rock scrambling, which I love. And so I told the race director, I was like, listen, because they did a whole like video, like I think the promo video, and I was like, look, I know my brand is like one of joy and happiness and stuff. Even when I'm I'm making a very concerted effort not to be joyful. People are like, oh my God, that's so inspirational. I was like, you know what? I was like, sometimes I'm a bitch. And sometimes I'm not nice. And actually I'm very snarky. Like most of the time, like if you know me personally, you know that I'm very snarky and I always got something to say about somebody. Like, don't look at me, whatever, but that's not what people see. And even when I try to do that and people are like, oh my God, like thank you for being so real. It's so inspirational. And he's like, and then when he met me, he was like, oh, well, you were telling the truth.
That's funny.
So there is always a pressure. And I do, like right now I am making a concerted effort to just have my own space, have my own like thinking time, and not to be sort of swayed by.
You have to say no to things.
I have to say no to a lot of things, which is really hard because you're like, oh my God, that opportunity might never come again. But I have to be okay with that.
Yep.
And I really just want to spend time with my son and my family in Brooklyn, and so yeah, there was a lot in there to kind of.
No. I think that was it. That was an important thing to say, especially as you're right. Like there is some pressure there, but there's also some, you've given yourself enough respect to be able to step back and to realize what is best for you. And people probably respect that, the fact that you do that, because we all kind of want to be able to do that. So well done to you for doing that. All right. I want to ask a few questions from the community that I suggested. So let's do, Mary Beth Shrek wants to know, what do you think is the biggest misnomer about being a plus size runner and being a slower, she's put in air quotes, because I know slower is relative, runner.
Right. I think the biggest misnomer about being and I'm just going to say fat runner, is that you can't run.
And what would be your response when people...
Obviously, if you look at my feed, if you look at like Latoya Snell's feed, if you look at Martinez Evans' feed, or Jill Angie's feed, there are lots and lots of people who are fat, plus size, curvy, thick, whatever you use, that run. If you go to any race, I don't know how it is. Well, I do know how it is in Europe because I have run in Europe. And if you go to even those races in Europe where like people are super serious, but everybody who is out there, with any kind of body type, they're out there doing it too. Mm-hmm. So like you go to any like 5K, 10K marathon, you go to New York City Marathon, you have all types of bodies out there. Mm-hmm. So don't ever tell me that fat people can't run or plus size people can't run, because that means that you just haven't seen it, right? But it exists. Just because you haven't experienced something does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Yep. And so put yourself in a situation where you do see other situations. All right, great. All right. Let's talk about your book, A Beautiful Work in Progress, which is your memoir. Tell us a bit about that and where people can find it.
Yes. So in 2017, I published my memoir, which is it's not a consecutive narrative. So I don't want to hear your criticism about it. It wasn't intended to be that. It's more of a series of essays. They are connected essays, connected thematically, about my running life. But my running life is not just my running life. It is my family. It is my education, because I am not here doing what I do without all of that, without my family, without my education, without having grown up in Brooklyn, without, having New York City, as my oyster.
With its sirens and all.
Exactly. Thank you, NYPD. And so like, I think, and, part of the reason I wrote the memoir was because, I was approached by a couple of agents, who were like, oh, you should write a memoir. You should write a book.
How does that feel for someone who's never going to experience that? How does that feel having someone say you should write a book?
Well, I've always been. I had always planned to write a book because I've always been a writer. So, but I never thought it would be about running. I realize now that is not the norm. That people have to write queries and, I didn't have to do any of that.
And send 100 of them. That's what people do, yeah.
I am so grateful for that. I'm so fortunate. But, but then I was like, I really want to do this. I thought it would be based on my blog. Maybe 10% of it is from my blog, and I made it more literary and stuff. But, the process was amazing. I mean, it was hard. It was really hard, and ego crushing.
In what way?
Just, because like you submit a manuscript, that was the easy part. And then the whole cadre of editors and come in, and the purpose is to make it a better book and to make you a better writer, and I know that intellectually, but it's really hard when you're in the mix. And so that was that was cool. It was cool to be able to do that, and to have a literary agent and who's expecting my next proposal. Anyway, so very, very cool. And also, I didn't want to write another how-to book. I wanted to show, not tell. This is what I did. It may not be the same for anybody else, but this is what I did. This is how I came to be the runner that I am today. And I wanted to fill in all of the gaps that all of the other media outlets had left out. Because, all you hear, here's this fat runner, who runs ultra marathons. And people, of course, they can't tell the whole story. I wanted to tell my own story.
Yep, I love that.
I wanted to be the person with a narrative because it is my narrative. So it's been exciting. I get a royalty check every month, which is awesome. And it's cool to see that people are still reading my book and buying it and writing me every day. I just read your book. A friend gave it to me, or I got it at one of your talks, or it was on the Amazon. You should read this, or people also enjoyed this book, and so I bought it on a whim. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for telling us about that, and I will put links in the show notes for anyone to go get yourself a copy. And I totally get what you're saying. Like I self-published my book. I didn't even want to try and go that way, but mine is the same kind of thing about my amenorrhea, and I didn't want to do, like you said, a how-to. It was just, here's what worked for me. This is my experience. If it helps you, great. And I see it as more like kind of a best friend, like telling you that they get it, rather than it being, here's what you need to do.
Right.
So yeah, and it's, I think those kind of stories are more powerful because yes, we do need kind of maybe not blueprints, because most things in running you can't just follow a blueprint, but like guidelines. But then you also just need stories and support, and someone who's saying like I get what you're saying and understands you. So thank you for that, and I will put links. All right, so you have some exciting things coming up next. Will you tell us about what you have coming?
So
don't sound too excited about that.
I'm actually very excited. I'm just a little overwhelmed. So I've got the Berlin Marathon coming up at the end of this month, well,
you're going to run it by the time this comes out, I'm afraid to tell you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I had the Berlin Marathon, and I don't know how I did. I don't remember.
That good.
I was in the moment, and an interesting tidbit about that is like my training has not been going very well because I've been injured. So a couple of weeks ago, I attempted the Trans-Rockies 6-day for the third time. I finished last year, 2018, first year, 2017. I didn't finish, but I did a lot of miles. And this year I have an Achilles thing going on. And so it's, been this injury that's sometimes, with Achilles, is sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you can run a marathon, sometimes you can't. And I also have been dealing with a lot of fatigue. So right before the Trans-Rockies, I did 2 video shoots. And then I was working on borrowed time, and I knew it. Like I knew it deep down. And so when I got to the start line of Trans-Rockies, I know I should have started. And I blew up at 8 miles of 120 miles. Yeah. So, but that's a whole nother podcast. And there were a lot of tears and stuff, but it actually ended up being a really good experience. And then I had to pull out of head to coast relay. And so I've been resting, which is something that I had not been doing. And just really, really trying to take care of myself and sleep, and sleeping, resting, sleeping, going to PT.
So hopefully Berlin went well by the time this comes out.
Yes.
And then what's beyond that?
Then I will be guest appearing at the Aire Libre retreat that they are doing with the Tarahumara in Copper Canyons, Mexico.
Oh, I just got chilled.
Yeah, and I will be going with my son.
My hair's standing up. Wow, that's so cool.
I'm so excited about that. And then, so that's a couple of days in October. And then I will also be doing the New York City Marathon as a part of team TCS teachers. So from the title sponsor. So so I'll be on that team, and that is actually work.
That's awesome.
So like I'm getting paid to run. Like
You're
like
professional.
I don't know about that word, but I definitely, because I ain't winning no awards. But I'm like really, really excited about
Have you done New
that.
York before?
I have done New York before. You know, it is my hometown race.
Oh yeah, I suppose you would have done.
And I mean, actually, that was I had been invited by Mike Caparazzo in 2016, and it was such a fabulous time. It was my worst marathon time, like it's the longest I've ever taken to run a marathon. But because the week before then I had done Marine Corps, so maybe not the smartest thing, but anyway, but my family was out. My brother like met me like at random spots all over. And so I'm really excited to do it again. And that also as part of Team TCS Teachers, because, you know, as I was a teacher for 18 years and as, you know, the educational community is very important to me, and to support them in any way that I can is awesome. And then that's November. And then I'm going to take a vacation, and the plan is to go to Costa Rica with my boy.
That sounds amazing.
So, and to surf, because I'm obsessed with surfing.
I love
I'm not
surfing.
very good at it.
That is the best. I honestly think, I've said this, I honestly think that's the better than the finish line feeling. Like, I just...
Getting up on that board.
Yeah. When you're standing and you like, I can only stay on it for 5 to 10 seconds. But
same.
When you are doing that, like, it is literally like the best feeling in the world.
Like the world just opens up to you when you are able to get up on that board and your form is okay, and you're on the water and you're letting the water carry you.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, there's so many metaphors. I only started surfing this year. In January, and then in Costa Rica.
You stood up then,
right?
Well done.
But I stood up the first day.
That's awesome.
And then I went back in March. I told my son, I was like, Rashid, do you want to go surf in Costa Rica? And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So we went, and then we're gonna go again in December.
So
yeah.
That'll be so good. Well, you have an exciting rest of your year coming, and I'm excited to follow along and hear more about it. Right. I have 4 more questions for you. These are what I ask at the end of every episode, which I don't think I told you. So you may not know these if you've never listened to my podcast, which I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you if you have. So one piece of advice you'd like to give the listeners for life.
For life? Shoot. Oh my God, there's so many things floating around in my head, and then the NYPD is going crazy.
Yeah, there's at least a few of them out there.
You never know until you try. And that is like that is in running, in life, trying new things, trying things that you've tried before. You still got to keep trying.
Yep.
And even if you don't achieve your goal, there is joy and there's purpose to doing the thing.
For sure. Great. Thank you. That's such good advice. All right. One person to follow on social media, and why?
Patagonia.
Patagonia, or are you saying actually the brand?
Patagonia. Not Patagonia. I mean, I follow them too. But Patagonia. Okay. You're just going to have to experience Patagonia for yourself.
Okay, that's awesome. I will.
Yes.
I've
Pattie.
Oh, IE.
Gonia.
Okay, got it. Cool. All right. How do you want to be remembered on this show?
As a person who correctly used the phrase.
I'm wondering which phrase you're going to pull out here, because there's quite a few.
Cognitive dissonance.
There you go. Yeah, you did use it correctly. Okay, we will accept that. I will say that I don't think I've ever heard. I have had some psychologists on, so maybe they would have used it. But that's their life's work, so they should be able to use it. All right, and finally, a running for real moment, something that only runners will understand. that feeling when you have to go out and run.
I know. Here it is. The feeling like when you're in flow and you're like, oh, I got it. And then 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, I don't got it. This is actually horrible. And I hate myself. But then like 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I call those physical and mental freakouts. Those are when I talk about those with people, how to overcome them, I say you're having a mental freakout. All right. So I said your book. I've got links in the show notes for it. Where else can people find you?
Instagram, the Mirnavator, Twitter, the Mirnavator. I'm not really good at tweeting because I'm not witty enough. But I'm there. On Facebook as Mirna Valerio - the Mirnavator or Fat Girl Running. I have 2 public pages, and I also have this amazing community on Facebook called Fat Girl Running, all caps, all one word. If you are interested in you don't have to be fat, you don't have to be anything. To be part of the group. But it is a really supportive, encouraging, it is motivational, inspirational, and we do not allow bullshit in our group. It's very, very heavily moderated, and by myself and some other moderators. We have rules of engagement, community norms, and we've got challenges, we've got everything. Great. And so please join us before I close it and make a secret again.
Okay. Well, hurry up, you guys, and go join her. Well, Mirna, you are every bit as wonderful as I had heard from other people and what I expected you to be. And I'm just so thankful that we had this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Oh, I just love that woman. We sat there for a while just talking, mostly about integrity, how we decide who to work with. There's a lot of pressure, especially when you're as popular as she is, to work with brands because they can pay her a lot. But as with me, Mirna really has to believe in what she is promoting, and I love that about her. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And Mirna also did do a live podcast in New York City with the New York Roadrunners on the same day I did. So if you haven't already listened to that, there is a link in the show notes. She did it with the Panzer Boys with Chris Chavez and Leanne Sharak. So you can go listen to that one. There is a link in the show notes if you want to go check that one out, because it's definitely worth a listen to. It was a great conversation and a really popular one. Now, next week, do you remember me talking about the doctor who was giving the keynote speech before me at the Eating Disorders in Sport conference? Dr. Gaudiani is on the show, and I still want to be her when I grow up. She's amazing, and I can't wait for you to get to know her too. So tune in next week, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We still have one more episode of the Beyond Running series coming this way, so I don't want you to miss that. And if you have missed the other ones, go back and listen to them. Have a great week, my friends.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.